During the Obama administration, Arizona and other states passed very harsh immigration laws, which made migrants and other people flee, which then caused a lack of farm help, which caused what farmers to not have their crops harvested because they didn't have enough work, which is happening again. Um, the United States is heavily reliant upon migrant farm workers because there's a lot of crops that still need to be picked by hand.
A new immigration bill in Florida is set to go into effect tomorrow. It centers around migrant workers who make up a large portion of the workforce in the state's key industries. Morning Joe reporter Daniela Pierre Bravo traveled to Florida to investigate how the new law will affect the agriculture industry, of course, one of the state's top economic drivers. And Daniela joins us now. Good morning, Daniela. What did you learn?
It is funny that these people are so racist that they will even, I mean, they're basically uh, cutting off their nose to spite their face, and it's like, why? What's the point? If you know that a lot of your farm work and stuff is based upon migrants, why would you want to keep them from entering the United States? If you know that Americans aren't going to work these farms, why uh, reduce the farm work by denying people entry into the United States? I mean, these people's racism, uh, they they allow it to blind them from like actual economic prosperity.
Hey, Willie, good morning. Well, first, that the effects of the bill have already started. Immigrants without status are leaving the state and have left the state in fear of the new law. Second, the implications of these immigrants leaving could extend beyond just individual cases. It could bring larger economic and labor concerns.
Here we go.
And Republicans are already screaming and crying about how there's not enough people working, and they want to prevent people who want to work in the United States from being able to work in the United States. How does that make any sense whatsoever?
Grow spinach, chili, a little bit of everything.
22-year-old Flor came to the U.S. from Guatemala 3 years ago, and on any given day, she's joined by other workers at this farm in Homestead, Florida. But today, she's doing the job all on her own.
There were 7 of us. The truth is, the other 7 already left. They already left to other states.
Flor's colleagues have abandoned their life in
Yeah, if she was smart, she would leave as well. There is no point in living in a state where you are so hated that they're passing laws to arrest you just for existing.
Florida in fear of Governor DeSantis' new Senate Bill 1718, which will bring sweeping changes to Florida's immigration law when it takes effect on July 1st.
We are acting with the strongest measures yet. We're proud of the legislature for stepping up and for getting this done.
Among other provisions, it requires public and now private employers with 25 or more employees to use the federal E-Verify system to confirm workers' immigration status.
Which is funny because it is always the illegal immigrants or the quote unquote illegal immigrants that get punished for working, while the employers receive no punishment whatsoever for hiring undocumented workers. If the employers were punished, there would be less undocumented workers coming to the United States. But, we could also just, you know, make these people citizens and give them protections and require the employers to actually pay them a living wage and insurance and stuff like that. That's the main reason why people hire undocumented workers is so that they can skirt various laws.
Imposing strict penalties on employers who hire workers without status and criminalizing transporting undocumented immigrants across state lines.
Oh, if this law does go into effect, will that mean Ron DeSantis will be punished for transporting undocumented immigrants across state lines like he has been doing, because that's one thing a lot of the Floridians love that Ron DeSantis is doing human trafficking. And that's funny because these people are supposed to be like, good people and stuff, and they support human trafficking.
In the pandemic, these workers were important. They were vital. And now they're being repaid by this slight from Governor Ron DeSantis. They're in panic. The news felt like an impact, a hurricane, like a tornado warning coming towards them.
They were useful during the pandemic for work, and now they're useful as a targeted group that Floridians can put their hate towards because they want to blame everything else but themselves for the reason why this state is utterly shit.
Flor is one of the estimated 772,000 undocumented people living in Florida, a state that's home to the third largest share of agricultural undocumented workers in the country.
Within the agriculture industry in particular, we know there's at least 130,000 seasonal and migrant farm workers who come here to work. Now, we know at least 60,000 of those workers are undocumented, but likely that is a conservative estimate.
Juan says that he's already seen empty farms and workers leave the state.
I've seen it in Homestead, I've seen it in Palm Beach, and in Tampa.
Agriculture is often thought of as almost the employment of last resort, particularly for native or documented workers. Given the situation in Florida right now, and really nationwide, with a low unemployment rate, it's going to be even harder to convince people that these are jobs worth taking.
Ermila is one of those owners having a hard time finding workers. She's had experience working with undocumented immigrants and worries of fear around the bill will drive even more workers away.
They're the ones with the experience. They're the ones who can tolerate the heat. Workers with legal documents look for work in offices, in restaurants. Many workers have already left, and many of them still have planned to leave. It's not going to be easy. If they're leaving because of fear, it's not going to be easy to find more workers. If it's harder to find workers, business will go down.
What happens?
And when Arizona did their immigration law, which caused migrant workers to flee, if I remember correctly, this was during the Obama administration. They tried to lease prisoners because prisoners is slave labor. That didn't work out. And then they just tried hiring people. That didn't work out either because Americans don't want to, pick crops for a few cents an hour like migrant workers are willing to do because of desperation.
Especially for those seasonal workers that aren't set to come back until September and October.
It's likely that those workers, they simply skip Florida entirely on their sort of path. And when you have parts of that supply chain missing or parts of that production process missing, it becomes that much harder for the people who are left to do their job. And so you're going to see...
Yeah, when you have a ton of, produce just rotting in the field because you don't have enough people to pick it, well, that's going to affect the supply chain and make everything more expensive. But do right-wingers care about that? No, even though they claim to be all about the budget.
Further exits from agricultural work, regardless of whether or not someone has a documented status or not.
So what about the long-term consequences?
A lot of the crops that they produce can also be produced in other states that are not going to maybe have these same labor problems. If this sticks around and workers respond to it, which we have evidence to say that they will, it's going to likely change the geography of agricultural production, particularly for those crops that Florida is known for.
What Governor DeSantis has done is dehumanized immigration, and he's made visible a serious problem, an underground world that already exists in Florida and the rest of the United States.
I asked Flor if she has plans to stay or leave Florida.
I'm not planning on leaving. I have my boy here, I have a son, he was born here, I have a life here.
It's sad that she feels like she is forced to stay here, working in a state that will not appreciate her contribution to society.
Leaving for another state is like starting from zero.
I reached out to the governor's office for a response on addressing specifically economic concerns and labor shortage worries that we've been hearing from farm owners. Their press secretary reiterated that this bill addresses only illegal immigration, as they chose to word it, and that the bill is a solution to companies hiring them instead of Floridians. But experts tell me, Willie, that workers without status make up around 40% or more of the agriculture industry in Florida, many of whom work at more than one farm year-round, right? So we'll have to see if migrant workforce continues to shrink and what impact that might have for prices on consumers. Willie?